Hey folks, my name's Mel Zabecki, and I work for the Arkansas Archaeological Survey at the coordinating office in Fayetteville, and I'm the Education Outreach Coordinator. I have been absolutely loving Michelle's videos and everybody else's videos that they've been posting about different kinds of artifacts and different kinds of lab work, and I got extra excited about all the historic glass. So we decided we were going to add one more segment to the historic glass, focusing on glass bottles. There are tons and tons of different varieties of glass bottles in history. And as Michelle mentioned, there were different kinds of ways that bottles were made. So we had the oldest ones starting in the 15, 16, 1700s are hand-blown ones. And then we get blown in mold, which leaves a seam. But then much more recently in the 1800s and 1900s, we have automatic bottles that were blown by a machine into a mold, and we get more seams like that. So there's lots of different ways to talk about how bottles were made and to date them basically on how they were made. But to figure out what was in them is a whole other different story. And I have learned that there was a lot of illiteracy in history, and so people weren't necessarily able to always read the labels on the different bottles that were here. So a lot of times they relied on the shape of the bottles, and those shapes have actually persisted through history into where we have bottles today that we can kind of imagine what they used to be filled with. Like this one. Doesn't it resemble a ketchup bottle from the present? And even if they're made of plastic today, they still kind of look similar to this. So this is a historic bottle, but it used to hold ketchup or some kind of other condiment. And so these panels along the side represent the fact that they would have had something like that in it. And we have other bottles that were clear and large that probably would have held liquor, just like our plastic bottles today do. And this one is embossed. So instead of it having had a label or maybe paint like this one actually had its own label embossed in it. And it says, "Federal law forbids sale or reuse of this bottle." And then it says St. Pierre Smirnoff. So there was vodka in this bottle, and I don't know how well you can see it with the light glaring on it, but that's an embossed bottle. So even though it had a little bit of a label, we could still tell from the shape and the size of it that it probably held liquor. Now we have some bottles that would have had more wide openings, like this one and this one. And generally those would have had things other than just liquid in them. So they would have had probably pickles or preserves. And we have some of our bottles, just like this today, have olives and things like that in them. So when there's little vegetables that have been preserved, they usually have wider mouths, so you can obviously get some of those things out. Now, the smaller bottles that we have generally would have held either medication or items for cleaning. This is one of an interesting one to me because we don't use it today, but just a generation ago, people were using this stuff. And obviously it would have had a label on it, but I could even tell what it was just from the little embossed part. It says Mrs. Stewart's Bluing. And it turns out my mom told me that bluing was used for whitening clothes. I don't know why it wasn't called whitening. But anyway, it was just a product that people used to use just a generation ago to whiten their clothes. But then the smaller medicinal bottles are really cute and small. They have very constricted openings because they were only going to allow for a little bit to come out. They could have also held some kind of toiletry like cologne, even a smaller constricted opening. And so all these little tiny bottles would have been more for medicinal products. Some were real kind of easy to tell because of the color that they were in. So again, not necessarily now do we use this product, but if you look on the embossed part, it's actually Vaseline. So Vaseline would sometimes come in this amber color. You would think of it as brown, but archaeologists use the word amber to describe this color of jar. And so a lot of the products had to be protected from the light, and the colors were added to it. And by the way, I think Michelle mentioned it before last time, that glass isn't naturally clear. Glass is actually naturally aqua, and that we add different chemicals to make it clear. So older jars you're going to see were either blue, like this ball canning jar, or have recently turned purple solarized or manganese glass because of the manganese in it has changed over time. So we've got lots of different shapes. Now, a lot of times bottles are not found whole, okay? And so there are archaeologists that specialize in glass bottles that have encyclopedic knowledge of all the different kinds of bottles that were found in their region. So when they find just a little teeny tiny piece, they can know what the original bottle looked like. And this is a good one for an easy example of something that's pretty easy to figure out, even if you have just one shard of it. And this is a knee-high bottle. It used to be a soft drink that used to be around here in Arkansas. And actually, I feel like this one was maybe bottled here. Oh, no, Columbus, Georgia. There are some I thought that were bottled here in Arkansas, though. But anyway, can you see all the different little patterns on it? And a while back, and I'm not the encyclopedic knowledge person, but I happen to remember that we had one of these whole bottles, and we were going through a collection a few months ago where we found a little tiny piece with that pattern on it, and I was able to trace it back to this actual, this shape of bottle and this product. So little tiny bits can be reconstructed into larger bits if we have patterns or specific shapes. I'm going to show you my 3 favorite bottles, and one of them is not historic at all. It's modern. I just drank out of it a while back. But one of my favorite ones is this one here. And it's, obviously there was a liquid in it, and it's got amber color. But if you look closely, the embossing, there's no words on it, but there's a little guy with a fish on his back. And I looked that up. Just like Michelle said, you could Google these things. And I just Googled amber bottle with guy holding fish, and it was actually for cod liver oil, and this was something that was used for rheumatism, and lots of people took cod liver oil. I can't imagine that it was very palatable. So that's one of my favorites just because of the picture. Another favorite one didn't actually hold liquid, and these are actually found a lot at Parkin, where Michelle works, and this is where I first learned about them. This is actually a snuff bottle or a snuff jar, and again, color amber, but I just like the shape, and I think the little rim on it is very cute. It would have maybe been covered by like either a bottle cap, a crown top, or maybe just a foil that would cover it. And so the snuff was ground up tobacco, so it would be put in here, and it was a wide opening. So it didn't have to be poured out like a liquid. It could be shooken out, okay? And I have also learned that there are little dimples on the bottom of a lot of snuff jars. And supposedly, if there's 1, it's the weakest kind of snuff. If there's 2, it's medium. There could be 3 and 4, and 4 would be the strongest of the tobaccos. So I think these are very cute little jars. Now, for my absolute crowning glory, my favorite kind of jar. I know that these things were used in history, but I've never actually seen one from an archaeological site. I've only learned about them. But then one day I was at a food truck, and I saw that there was this interesting looking drink. It was an Asian food truck. And I saw this and I thought I had to have it. So this is modern, but they really did make these things. They're called cod stoppers. And what it is like the regular bottle, and then it's got a very, very constricted neck. And then inside, there's another section above the neck that has a little glass ball in it that actually would have been sucked up to the top here. It's almost like a carbonation thing. And the little ball have to be pressed down in order for the drink to be opened. And then so that you don't get the ball back sticking in here when you try to take a drink and then it stops the opening, there's a little thing, that's the cod stopper right there. It's a little dimple that would hold the ball while you were drinking so it didn't fall all the way down and close the bottle again. So this is, again, a modern one, but this would have been fun to find because this is a very distinct shape. And so these are all the different kinds of jars that you can find, and all the different kinds of jars teach archaeologists about different things that were used by people. A lot of the toiletry and medicinal items can tell us a lot about how people were handling their hygiene and their medicine and what they had access to. And then foods, of course, like the canning jars and like the more specific things like ketchup and preserves and things like that tell us about diet. And it's all really interesting stuff. And so I'm going to put a link in the bottom in the comments section, or Michelle will put a link there for you for this, a link to the Society for Historical Archaeology. And they have these great pages that have all kinds of information on glass bottles and the dating and the manufacture of them. And plus that whole website has a lot of other amazing references. So hope you enjoyed it and enjoy learning about historical artifacts. Thanks.